What's going on, folks? Nate here at Two Wheel Dyno Works, and as promised, we are continuing on with our R&D on the new Ninja ZX4RR. We got our first batch of parts from Graves for our test bike here. We went ahead and opted to pick up one of their slip-ons that they offer for these bikes. We also got a tail tidy installed. We've got some frame sliders we just haven't popped on there yet, and we went ahead and even got a DNA air filter because, well, the stock one was stock. And as expected, the gains are essentially more everywhere. Just a quick recap for you folks, we went ahead and got this bike up to 70 horsepower and about 26.5 foot-pounds of torque with the bone stock exhaust system installed. So now let's see what it does with our custom mapping and the Graves slip-on in place. So now that you can breathe a little better, and we've got our custom mapping dialed in for this combination, the gains are literally just more everywhere. Final numbers for this slip-on and an air filter installed with proper custom mapping is about 74 horsepower and 28.5 foot-pounds of torque. So we picked up about 4 horsepower at peak and about 2 foot-pounds of torque at peak, but those horsepower gains are pretty much everywhere throughout the entire RPM range, along with the torque gains. Now, 4 or 5 horsepower and maybe 2 foot-pounds of torque doesn't sound like a lot to most people, but when you consider that the bike is only making now 74 horsepower and 28 foot-pounds, that's like 8.5% more torque and about 5% more horsepower, pretty much throughout the entire RPM range. So that is not a bad improvement whatsoever when the bike was already perfectly mapped for the stock system, and now we're comparing it to a high-flowing filter from DNA and the Graves slip-on. Now, let's have a quick moment of honesty. If you're buying one of these bikes, you're not going to leave it stock. So the stock versus the air filter and slip-on comparison is interesting information, but kind of irrelevant. The slip-on obviously produces a little more power. The airflow obviously produces a little more power, but nobody in their right mind buys one of these bikes, especially with the limited production that's coming out this year, and plans on just not modifying it. So what we're about to show you is what you should be really considering once you buy one of these things. Bone stock, when you pick up one of these bikes, it's going to make about 53.5 horsepower, about 24.5 foot-pounds of torque, and the power curve just sucks. But with some pretty inexpensive modifications, an air filter, a slip-on, an ECU flash with our custom mapping, all of a sudden, your power curve looks like this. The bike will run cooler, smoother, and stronger throughout the entire RPM range, and you pick up almost 25 horsepower at the top end. So now let's do some math. A bike that makes 50 horsepower, you gain 25, carry the two. Yeah, that's 50% more power. 50% horsepower improvement for under $1,000. I'm not sure I've ever been able to tell anybody that they can improve their performance of their brand new bike in 2023 by 50% for under $1,000. Again, this is just an air filter, a slip-on, and proper ECU flash and mapping. That's it. That's fucking cool. Anyway, now that rant's over, that's all I've got time for you today, folks. We're going to go ahead and pull this off the dyno, and it's just going to kind of hang out here at the shop while we wait on some additional parts. We've got a few full exhaust systems on the way. We're actually going to experiment some velocity stacks as well, because I know for a fact there's some top-end gains to be had there after we took a look at those earlier today, and we will be sure to keep you guys filled in as we get these parts installed on the bike and build our custom mapping for these various combinations. And once again, in case you missed the first video, our ECU flash for these bikes is on sale on our website right now for $329.99. So if you want to literally add 50% more power to your ZX4, go ahead and get yourself a good air filter, get yourself a slip-on, and send us your ECU. As always, if you have any questions, give us a call or shoot us an email, support@tooldynworks.com. We are always happy to help.